see what Fobmaster's got to say then about ZZZ losing the vision for the game then. Somebody said I should watch this because it kind of relates to other games as well. So, hey, let's have a look then, shall we? From your boy Fobmaster. See what he's got to say about ZZZ and the vision of the game then. Let's go.
There are literally only 2 other games like ZZZ. It's PGR and Honkai Impact 3rd. I don't think it's crazy. I think most people recognize what prints the easiest money. I think when they look at Honkai Impact and PGR, they're not like, damn, that makes the most money. They're like, that's okay. ZZZ is probably the biggest moneymaker of them, but even ZZZ falls short of like the other Hoyo games, right? By a long shot. If I was a developer that wanted to copy to create something that's gonna be a big moneymaker, why would I, you know, use inspiration for something that's like the worst out of the bunch? Devs just don't have a vision yet in ZZZ's direction. No, the devs had a vision. You guys killed it. The devs' visions was the whole TV thing and the HDD and the fucking exploration through the TV, and then you guys were like, we don't like that, and now
I mean that's somewhat fair, right? Yo, what's going on, dude? Yeah, happy Christmas, man, to everybody, even if you don't celebrate it, happy holidays, all that good stuff. I think that's fair. The TV system was a core element to the game, right? For me, I said this a million times in this on Zero, right? The TV system wasn't bad. It was implemented in a bit of a in a I don't even want to say poor way, just a way that most people didn't vibe with, right? Because it made sense because of the way you explore things through Bell and Wise in the game, through the TV system, through the computer network, right? It made sense for in between combat to be kind of traversed like that because that was you as the proxies traveling through the network, if you will, the matrix, if you will. So it kind of made sense lore-wise, right? But it was just, I think it was a little bit too much sometimes, personally. Like for me, I said loads of times, oh man, I wish they really lent into the TV stuff, but used it for more side content rather than, not injecting into the story here and there, but it was more optional side stuff, really lent into it on events and stuff, because when we started to see them doing kind of like little mini game type stuff, almost arcadey kind of games, that stuff was really, really cool. Do you know what I mean? That stuff was really cool for me. So I do think the TV system is a fine system. I just think it was shoehorned in. I don't want to say shoehorned actually, because it made sense, right? Shoehorned would imply that it was just forced in for the sake of whatever. I just think that it was just unfortunate that majority of the player base was like, yeah, I don't know about this, Chief. I don't know about this. And I was one of those players that said it kind of would be good to explore a little bit more in ZZZ in between combat. And I do like that they started to do that more. So, yeah, I get what Fob's saying here, to be fair.
Now the devs are fucking in like square one, bro. No, says you. 100%. I killed it too. Chat, I didn't like it. I killed it too. You're right. But like, I think the issue with ZZZ that people might have, they don't realize why the game to them might seem visionless. It's because you killed their vision, bro. The devs clearly had a vision as to what they wanted to produce. And then everybody...
I think that's a fair thing to say as well, that you can see from like a lot of the streams that they do, they're like a... I don't know if there's necessarily a lack of a vision there, but there may be a bit rudderless in where do we lock in that really gets us, you know, gets people to cling on to what we've got here. That's what it seems like to me. And again, I haven't been playing ZZZ much recently. I am planning to get back into ZZZ though, because I do really like ZZZ. But I think it, from the outside looking in, sometimes it does look like the devs do feel a little bit rudderless. And I don't mean that from the fact of like they're in over the head, you know, these are shit devs like some people say. I think it's just that they kind of had to rip a major part of their design philosophy up and go back to the drawing board, right? And I still don't think they've quite necessarily nailed on what they're doing, maybe.
Somebody shit on them for it, and probably higher ups told them they need to change, and now they fucking changed it, and they don't fucking know where to go. Because it's like, this isn't what we created this for. This is why, after the ZZZ TV change, chat, I've changed my stance on things, right? This is why I said Endfield should never remove their factory. Because I think if Endfield removed their factory from complaints by the player base, it would be a ZZZ situation all over.
I agree. This is what I say, where a lot of people thought I was Tobero where there was things in his video that I disagreed with, but I philosophically understood his worries, or the root of his worries, of attempting to chase the mainstream audience and how that could negatively affect Enfield as an overall game. I don't necessarily agree with blueprints and the dodge being tweaked being the core worry of that, but it's that idea that, you know, we could get into chasing that, kind of like, I guess what ZZZ did a little bit. They were like, oh, maybe this is a little bit too niche for what we want to get here. So I agree. We don't want them to do that. That's one thing we definitely don't want them to do, is to start stripping out core elements of the game. And I don't think they're going to. But I also think this is why I do think blueprints was a good thing, right? Because there's the argument that, well, if people just start using blueprints, then, you know, people are going to interact with the system. But I think there's going to be enough people who will enjoy interacting with the system. And also when there's downturns and slow times in content, there's people who will go and interact with the system anyway, that it now allows them to, I guess, kind of lean into it. Like, you guys were right. I think I had a lot of people saying this in my comment section, that, well, with the blueprints, think of it like this. The people who want to disengage have that option to disengage. And now they can go full bore with the people who want to engage. And they can stack up the layers now. They can get deeper, because the people who want to engage with it are going to want depth out of that system. And I was like, oh, shit. Oh, yeah, you guys are cooking with that. You know, you guys are cooking with that. I think that's a good point. And I hope we see that as well. I hope we see them actually lean into the factory system more. Because I'll admit, right, I said, you know, when I saw the blueprints, again, I said I can understand the philosophical argument to Tolbro, but as somebody who's not a connoisseur of factory games, right, I can enjoy them from time to time. And building in games, I prefer it more in types of something like an Enshrouded, where you build a base for a more action game. It's a base you interact with rather than a factory type system. It's never been my bag. So I was like, oh man, not gonna lie, might actually use a blueprint from time to time myself. But in this latest beta, one thing I've found in the little that I have engaged, because I played the beta way less than I wanted to, but I'm happy because it's coming out on the 22nd anyway, so I don't mind. But that being said, when I did start engaging with the base, or the factory system, should I say, I really started to have fun. And I genuinely think it's incumbent upon Hypergryph to really tempt people with a carrot on the stick with the factory system, because I think they've done a really intuitive thing. And if they can start to give it depth, well, more depth than what it's got now, I think it's a system that a lot of people will go from being like, don't care, to being like, oh shit, yo, actually, this is actually kind of fun. And when you have those patches where it's a little bit dry, maybe the story was completed in a few hours and there's not that many great events, because it's going to happen. We are going to have that happen in Enfield. That's a perfect time to be like, right, I'm going to go and dump 20 hours into my factory around the map, and I'm going to build up my shit. You know what I mean? I'm going to really create a cool factory for myself here and go all out on it. And I think that's where the factory can really start to shine, is on slow content times, right? You can maybe speed run through your factory when you start in the game and you're enjoying all the combat and the story and the events and building your account, and then, fuck, I've got nothing to do until the update comes out in 2 weeks. All right, time to get into the factory. I think that's a real positive, or a potential, should I say. Because you're still not allowed to play Enfield on launch unless you catch up on 8K.
Never again. Where they lose their identity,
yeah, what's up,
to
Blue?
some degree.
The tutorials should be improved, I agree.
I don't want them to. But, like, you have to be honest and admit there are a lot of people online bitching about the fucking factory. We just watched a Ken video about his figurines, and he was talking about his least liked things about Arknights Enfield being factory, right? He literally said, I don't really like the factory system, but I just, like, you just have
Do you know
to
what I've noticed?
Right? So,
you know, since this beta, right? You know, this idea that it's not a core element of the game seems to have gone away a little bit now, right? I remember people kept saying that. It's not a core element of the game. You're smoking crack if you think that. It's kind of, people have stopped saying that a bit too much now, right? A little bit too much. Yo, Crystal, what's going on? Just watching Fob's video on ZZZ.
The factory thing is a really disliked part of Arknights Enfield from a lot of fucking people. So we'll see what happens. If ZZ kept its TVs, it would be doing even worse than it's doing now.
The thing is as well, I think a lot of people who dislike the factory haven't tried it yet, which is rich coming from me, who said I had my issues with the bike, but that comes down to a fundamental game design thing over years, right? It's not just specifically factory itself. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see with those people as well.
Sure.
They might change their mind.
Will the devs still have their vision and their art? It's like this. I guess it comes down to, do you believe games, just like art, are things created out of passion or for monetary gain? And like, ZZZ devs could have had a vision for the TV thing that was out of their passion and their dream, right? And the vision for what they had for the
end of the day, it's both, right? I get what he's saying. Like, money is always going to be the fundamental driving factor. It's what keeps the lights on, right? It's what keeps food in people's bellies. So it's always going to be the core. You just hope that there's a balance, right? That the art itself can be good enough that the monetary systems, they almost take a back seat in a sense. They're always front and center, but the art is done with such passion and such desire that it, you know, it spearheads the whole project. And I guess for me, I believe Hypergryph can pull it off, man, because like, right, gacha is gacha, right? And I'm not naive to be, oh, this company's my friend, but out of, and they're not the, this is not unique to Hypergryph, but I've said this before, man, like, it feels like an engagement with the art form itself, right? Just look at Arknights and everything that surrounds it with the music and the concerts, and that's not just about money, right? I'm not saying it probably is profitable for them, these concerts and stuff now. That's about engaging with the art form and really getting involved in it, right? This is why the reason there's a joke that Hypergryph are just a music company LARPing as a game dev, right? You know, I think you've only got to kind of experience the ecosystem that is Arknights to see that.
Project, but then like now that was removed, they have like it's a hollow shell of what it could have been, right? The vision was ass, fuck that. Okay, but like what I'm saying is, okay, chat, have you guys not done anything creative in your life? Right? Let's say you had a vision for something that you were creating, and then your teacher came over and said, that shit's ass, change it. Do you not find yourself in a position where you're like, this was what I based everything off of, this was the foundation, like what do I change? Like, and then you try to change it, and all that comes out is like maybe something your teacher likes, but you don't genuinely like it at all because you were just forced to change it. And
when you do that, that drive that created the thing is gone. It becomes a shell then, doesn't it? It literally becomes a shell. And that's how you can get those things of going back to what Tolburu said, which is a fact, a game for everybody or a thing for everybody can end up becoming a game for nobody, right? It's like the saying of, when you attempt to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. Sometimes you just kind of got to stick to your guns and, you know, take the path of being successfully niche or unsuccessfully general. End of the day, you're going to want to take successfully niche, right? Initially appealing to the general audience, but failing because nobody gives a fuck is a worse situation than being successfully niche. We understand that Endfield has to try and appeal to a more general audience because it requires a bigger injection of cash, right? But man, with how much I would imagine it's cost to make Endfield, yeah. If they make the sort of money that Arknights has been making recently, I think they'll be fine. You know? They'll be fine.
Right?
So like, it's been making crazy money, right?
Where we all agree, chat, we all didn't like the TVs. But like, you have to also be empathetic to the fact that if the devs had a vision originally for the game and it was based around TVs, and you might think the vision is bad, I think the vision was bad, but you have to agree as to why they're stumbling upon refinding a vision. Because it's like, ZZZ is this donut, jelly donut, and the jelly was the TV. Right? But then we were all like, oh, this shit tastes like ass. And then they were like, okay, so they removed all the jelly.
Donuts,
now they need to figure out what to replace that jelly with, and they haven't been able to figure something out that people...
You want to get maybe a caramel salted topping and a bit of like cream in the middle. And then you got a good donut, man. Get that jelly shit out of here.
Really fucking like yet. So it's like, I don't like jelly. Now people told them in CBT that the TVs were hurt the game. They literally apologized because of how bad the TVs were. I get that. I bitched about the TVs in the CBT as well. But here's my question, Fluffy Dough. If you were an artist and you got a bit of pushback on something that you drew.
Again, for me, it comes back to implementation. TV's not bad. Implementation, poor, right? Kind of like for me, the bike in 3.0. Bike, not inherently bad. Implementation, not exactly what I want. I'm not saying it's poor because it's more subjective. And I suppose the TV system is anyway. Some people probably adored it.
That wasn't that great, but you really believed in it and wanted to go push through to release, and then you do that. Like, do you really blame the artist for wanting to do that? I feel like that's fine. Draw better, and this is why I quit art, bro. And draw better, little bro. But if the artist is wrong, though, this is where I think fundamentally you guys are like thinking about games wrong. Do you think artists are drawing for you, chat, or do you think the artists are drawing for themselves? Now, obviously, ZZZ.
This is just like the evil of business, right? It's just the evil of business, isn't it? And I suppose this is what something that's been somewhat lost in gaming since gaming became such the money maker it is, right? And gaming has become incredibly expensive because games, big flashy games, take so much to make. You have to get a return on investment. That's why I think, like, you know, the PS1 era of people making games from the freaking garage and pumping them out because the cost was so small. The art form was all that mattered. But they had no idea that, man, I'm going to be driving a Ferrari in 10 years' time because of this project. It was just, I've got a cool idea to make for a video game. Maybe some people like it. And I get what Fob's saying there, because that is true, right? To look at art, that's what art is, isn't it? But at the same time, you got to take in the business side of things, right? And especially in the gacha space, especially when they've got investors, especially when publishers are involved as well for other companies, you know. And I'm not specifically talking Hoyo or Hypergryph here because we know what's happening in publishing side of things now. But you've got investors, right? You've got quarterlies to reach and stuff, and that is always going to affect the art form, isn't it? And if the customers aren't happy, there is that idea of the customer's always right in a sense. There might not be, right? There might not be because the art it isn't for them in a way. But if you want to sell it, you kind of got to make it for them, haven't you? If you already have the money, that's the desire to make what you enjoy is stronger than making bank doing something you can't do. Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. That's what we need. And we need we need Elon Musk to scrap SpaceX, fuck Tesla off, and just start making video games for shits and giggles. Just give hundreds of billions to like some game devs and just say, do what you want, mate. And then we'll get some goated games, right? We'll get some goated games. Yeah, man, tell them they matter, chat. In fact, tell them anyone you care about to make the day. Merry Christmas. Yeah, man. You know, when it comes to artists as well, like, right, it's a tough gig, man. It's a tough gig, you know?
Is a corporate product, so this doesn't really work, right? They have a fucking probably a certain amount of money they need to produce and stuff like that, right? Sure, but if we're purely thinking about games and things like art as like,
sorry to keep pausing as well. Look at art sometimes. Look at some of the greatest artists of their time. They never were considered great until after the death. Like, there's a lot of artists through history who've kind of lived poor. Maybe sometimes poor lives of squalor, sometimes just getting by. And then after the death, the appreciation for the arts come in, right? You know, because that's the thing as well. Sometimes art can, and I'm not specifically talking about video games here, I'm all talking about art in general, can like be ahead of its time, you know, or not represent that society or the viewpoint of what is good of that time. And years later, it can come round to being seen as genius. You know what I mean?
Creative passionate projects that they're creating for themselves more than anything. Like,
I think if he's doing $500 million a year just off Arknights, yeah. Really, that's why I don't mind
because you want to
throwing some cash into Arknights, you know, fund the Endfield development. Let's do it, boys.
One of my favorite things that I see Hoyo Twitter and Wua Twitter post non-stop about how much passion the developers have for their game and how much they love their player base and how much they listen and are and like how much love they put into everything. So like, I don't know, who knows, but like they do. I like to believe.
Wuthering Waves is kind of a perfect example, right? They had a vision, right? They had a story. They had a design initially, and guess what? The Chinese player base didn't like it in the beta, and they ripped that shit up. There's a reason why 1.0 had a rough start in terms of storytelling. It wasn't just because Kuro were fucking incapable of doing that. They were fucking speedrunning, getting back into. It's what, in a sense, 2.0 is kind of like the new, the soft launch in a way of Wuthering Waves. I think that's why I say sometimes it feels like a bit of a retcon Wuthering Waves just now from 1.0. Because in a sense, it kind of was, right? They didn't have the time to get everything ready for 1.0. 1.0 was kind of the tatters of what it originally was. And then we are where we are now. And this is the game, right? This is the future, whether you like it or not.
Every developer that is working on their games has a level of passion and love to create something they enjoy. I think at the end of the day, chat, this is not so much just gacha games. When a developer or a team of developers are creating a game, I think first and foremost, they're creating it with their own vision, their own passion, and they're trying to create something they love. Us as consumers, if we line up, we love what they love, then we end up liking this game. If we don't like their vision, don't like what they like, don't see their passion, then we don't like the game, right? But I don't think necessarily that means the thing they created lacks these things. It just means you don't align with these things. It's just like if I drew the stick figure, there might be some fucking idiot that thinks the stick figure actually looks like the biggest masterpiece ever, but you know, some people might think it's ugly. What about the urban bass style ZZZ has that was unique and now it's just a snooze fest? Bro, their vision was to make money in the TV. No, don't get me wrong. Obviously, with like a lot of AAA games, like fucking Call of Duty, like is there...
But even then though, right, if I think what he's going to say it, because what somebody said in the chat there, that of course there's always the corporate thing of, right, somebody comes with a pitch. When it comes to things like COD, it's a little bit less of a pitch like that because it's like, right, we have the next Call of Duty, right, where are we taking it? But there's a pitch, right, where there's somebody who their idea isn't how much money this makes, although that's going to be a driving factor because there's always a suit telling them money, 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 money. But even in games like Call of Duty, there's somebody in there, in the design team, in the writing team, who's like, oh my God, this is the dream. I'm working on Call of Duty. I want to make this the biggest, the best. It's going to be amazing. I've got so many ideas. I'm ready to go. And it's easy sometimes, especially even when it comes to AAA games, to look at stuff and be like, yeah, this corpo bullshit, man. But within that corporation, there's human beings, believe it or not, who are genuinely excited to be a part of this project, to be designing this game, and even if it's parts of the game you look at and go, that's trash, right? There was a person sitting at the other end designing that who was initially so excited about it. Now, are they excited about the outcome? Maybe sometimes not, because that's where middle management and the busybodies get involved and their initial idea gets bastardized for the drive of cash flow. But, behind every game, there's parts of it where there's a passionate person behind it, right? And a person with vision. It's just how much it gets filtered by the suits, right? And the return on investment and the shareholders and the CEO and, all those parts of the corporate entity that kind of dilute the art form. Because in a sense, when you think about it, art and corporates, it's kind of like it butts heads, doesn't it? The beauty when you get something brilliant is when it manages to work together, and the people who are parts of the suits are also people who have the passion and the vision as well, but also care about profit. And, that's when magic happens, right?
Really any vision or passion or love anymore, or is it just another fucking Call of Duty, right? Sure. At the end of the day, I think, maybe this is a naive way to think, but I think games are works of art just like anything else. And most developers who actually have a passion for their craft are trying to create something that they love. And I think it's better if a developer sticks to their guns and creates something they love and finds an audience of people that love it the same way they do, rather than if the developer changes everything to cater to the consumer to create something that the consumer loves.
I also agree with this, but at the same time, it's not always... That's just the reality, right? It's not always the case, depending on who's running the company, where you are. Sometimes some of these people borrow money to create these things, and it's not that, oh, we've ran out of money. It's shit. We've got debt chasing us now. We've got to make this happen. We have to get investors, and the investors come in and they go, all right, like what you're doing here, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, do this. Here's $500,000. Here's $1 million. Here's $10 million. gets the fucking bank off your back or the debt collectors off your back, and then you can continue on, right? That's why sometimes it just happens. And then you get like moments where a company like Hypergryph, right? There's people involved in it who are passionate, right? You know, you look at companies like Project Red, CD Project Red, right? You know, you can tell the people throughout that company are passionate about the things they create. And there's a myriad of companies that are like this, right? It's not unique to a few individual companies. It's just that, you know, we've got the megacorps like EA and Activision and Ubisoft, who they're companies that have been so infiltrated by corporate slop that we just get crap, don't we?
But the devs don't really like. Because you know what this creates? If the developer ends up catering to the consumer and creates something that consumer loves but the dev doesn't like, then you get a game that has updates in the future that are just complete dog shit because the developers don't even like it. They're just creating something that shills to the fucking audience. Sure, you might have a couple patches subsequently that are doing okay, but then eventually you're gonna hit a wall where the devs don't really have a vision for it because they don't fucking give a shit about it. Passion doesn't feed you though. Well, yeah, this is why my parents told me not to do an art major, because art doesn't fucking pay the bills, but you know, it's still, at the end of the day, if you're in love with something, you want to see it through. So you prefer EOS just because of stubbornness? Well, no, that's why that'll never happen, right? Because companies like Hoyoverse won't let ZZZ EOS. They'll be like, okay, bitches, you tried your fucking shit, your vision sucked ass, we're doing it our way, fucking make the money, right? So like, that won't happen. Well, unless it's like Tribe 9 where Akatsuki Games have a fucking stick up their ass and refuse to let the fucking developers rework it at all and just fucking kill it. Like, take
those guys saw that first month revenue and went, fuck that, kill it with fire.
Get out back and fucking shoot it with a shotgun. That could happen, but Tribe 9 didn't suck ass, chat. I think Tribe 9 had a great vision. I think Tribe 9's developers had a great passion for the game. I think it was fucked over by monetization by probably greedy fucks like
poor
Akatsuki
launch,
Games.
poor advertising, poor marketing.
Didn't have the patience to try to weather the storm.
It's already niche
like,
and
right the ship at all, and just fucking sank it. They didn't even give the game a chance after one emergency patch. Yeah, it's mid. Every single person that tells me Tribe 9 is mid has never fucking, if I ask them to bring up their fucking Steam, they've never even played the game. So shut your mouth. Like, all you've done is watch people play the game. You never played a game, and you just like call it mid. Okay, that's like me sitting here and be like, Expedition 33 sucks ass. And then what do you guys say? You haven't even played the game. You can't say this shit. Like, okay, same thing, bitch. If you haven't played Tribe 9, why are you talking shit, stupid motherfucker? It was terrible on mobile. I tried it. That's just so wrong. I played Tribe 9 the most on mobile. What are you?
Yeah, it should have come out on console as well, right? It really should have. Yeah. I feel like it had an audience on PlayStation 5, definitely.
Saying? Yeah. Are you you're just lying. Or you're just, or you have tiny hands. You got fucking little baby Trump hands. You could have fucking reached a button. So you're fucking like, okay, bro, that's a you issue, not the fucking game. How about you get bigger fucking hands? Or get like, come on, man. Nah, the game was perfectly
nearly
fine
smacked
on
my
mobile.
pop out
It
then.
played great. Don't rage bait me with Tribe 9, motherfuckers. I will cook you, okay? That was my baby. Only Genshin changed the gacha space, even though I don't like it anymore. Has there been a game since Genshin?
Has that? No, I don't think there has that. I don't think there has. This is why I made a video before when I was still back when I was playing Wuthering Waves, right? I made a video saying we need to thank Genshin. It was titled something like that, right? And the amount of comments that I got in it going, I don't need to thank them for fucking up nothing. I'll acknowledge what they've done, but I ain't thanking them for shit. And I was just like, you're missing what I'm saying here. Like, it fundamentally shifted the space, right? It made a shift in monetization, whether you believe for good or worse. But I think it genuinely shifted to at least some forms of safety nets for games. And it shifted the corporate mindset of, shit, we can actually make a boatload of money by making a game that maybe costs a boatload of money, right? That has scope and scale, and it feels almost like a real game, pardon the pun, in this space, right? Yeah, you know, we wouldn't be where we are now and what we're seeing coming in the future for gacha games or the anime gacha / adjacent space, if not for Genshin. You know, you can hate it, you can hate Hoyo, you can dislike it, you can rabbit on about QOL and Woo is better and this, that, the other. It fundamentally, it changed. There's no denying it, right? You can hate it or love it, you can't deny the impact it had on the space.
That you could say definitively changed the gacha space. I guess not. It's been pretty like the same old shit for a while, I'm gonna be honest. Wua began the gacha wars. Wua 2.0? No. Say what you want. If you like Wua, that's great. I like Wua, but I'm not sitting out here and pretending Wua revolutionized the gacha space. Wua is just another iteration of a very well-built...
Bro, they added flight though, man. Guaranteed weapons, bro. Bro, it's peak. Every patch is peak. Have you seen the bike? Brother, come on, man.
Formula that works. What I mean by change the gacha space, chat, is this. Before Genshin Impact, you know the only motherfuckers who played gacha? Basement-dwelling neats, hardcore weebs, who had like no fucking, like haven't seen the sunlight in like weeks, like haven't touched grass in months. Like those are the like mainstream gacha players, all right? Those still exist. It's just a lot more normies. Pre-Genshin, you would never see in the gacha space people being like, can we get the geographical location in which this character is based on, and can we analyze their melatonin levels to make sure that not melatonin, so melanin levels to determine that if their color pigmentation is accurate. You might be one of the few honest like, gacha. You want to know all I saw pre-Genshin? Analysis. How big are her tits? Measurement 15 fucking feet. Oh my god, she's just like that was like the most shit you saw in the gacha space.
To be fair, that is pretty cultured though, right? That's pretty cultured.
You know, this is why I'm saying Genshin definitely brought a big change to the gacha space. I don't think any other game has since. Which is
Genshin
like a good
Impact.
and a bad thing, right? Because it's a good thing because I don't want any more bad change. Because like as great of a change Genshin was, there's a lot of negative changes that came with it, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of positives too, because now we have like some of the best games that gacha has seen in a long time, right? Flight did a lot for the game for exploration and open world gacha games. I can't imagine one without one nowadays. Feels like it should be mandatory if you're gonna have massive zones. Yeah, Jam Master. So you think Flight
that is the personification, that comment right there, of the people that are in my comment section on my video, right? These are the type of people, right? After Wu's combat system kind of like doing something same, but different to Genshin, right? And having the, you know, we all being rotation based fucking into your DPS combat, that we're getting Azure Premier looking like it's looking, the Silver Palace looking like it's looking, and we'll probably get 12 of the games looking like they're looking with fucking rotation based combat, all very samey, right? Is because people see something that they like in a game, right? And they're like, that's it. Every game has to have it now. Flight, every game's got to have it. Motorbike, every game's got to have it, because I like homogenization. I like everything to be the same. That can't be better in a different way. Oh, man. These are the type of people, man, for me, that need armbands when they're eating their cereal, right? They need to have armbands when they're eating their fucking Cheerios in the morning, because if they don't, they're gonna fucking drown. You know? They're gonna drown.
Being added to Wua 2.0 is going to change the gacha space. You're delusional. I can tell you the next gacha open world gachas you're gonna try are not gonna have flight. The next zone in Wua 3.x is not gonna have flight, and you're gonna fucking eat it up. Or I'll just play Endfield. Like Jim Master, you just said Wua flight Revolut is gonna change gacha, but then you just named a game that doesn't have flight. Doesn't have
does total opposite in terms of exploration, in fact.
Gliding even. Who's to say it won't be added? I think the furthest Endfield will do is give you a fucking like thing you could make hover from point A to point B like a zip line. Like, don't get me wrong, I think flying in Wua was one of the coolest fucking things added easily by...
For a while, I agree, for a while, that first time when you got to run a seat, yeah, and you started flying, it was like, fuck, this is sick. And I'm still, flying still was, you know, inherently had a little bit of enjoyable factor to it. Like, it was cathartic in a way. It just felt good, right? But, yeah, I think it was, honestly, I think it, I don't know, I'm still sticking to this. I think it was a slippery slope of the reductive aspect of the world of Wuthering Waves. You know, I wonder now, will Kuro ever have the balls to go back to a 1.0 world that's just like, and say what you will about 1.0, let's say 1.0 on steroids, that's incredibly interesting to explore, that it's about traversing on foot. I don't know if we ever will, right? And that's why I feel like it's become a slippery slope, man. They built a rod. It either has to be a sidestep, so flight's got to come back, or the bike's got to come back, or it's got to be something in between. Are we going to be running around in fucking mecha suits and gamboling through the fucking countryside? Like, you know? I don't know, man. So I say, man, this idea of that's how exploration has to work in video games for me, I'm not a fan of it, especially when it comes to open worlds.
By a crazy margin, but I don't think because WUA added flight, every single gacha in the space is like, okay, we're making a new gacha game, we need to make sure we're flying. Yeah. If we're not flying, we're not making a game. Like, I don't think they're doing that, okay? WUA would not exist if Genshin did it. I don't know if that's 100% true, but like, I think we could all agree if Genshin...
I don't think it's true because I think Wuthering Waves was in production before Genshin launched. I want to say, if I remember correctly, I'm sure it started around like 2019, 2020, but I don't think it would look like the game we have now, if not for Genshin. I think it would have been a lot more smaller, condensed, have a lot less scope, and probably be a bit more akin to I don't even want to say linear, but maybe not an open world action RPG. Maybe something just a lot smaller in scale, right?
Didn't exist.
I don't
the
know.
amount of money that's in gacha right now would not be to where it is. That far I could agree on, because
I didn't want to say as well, when I say all this stuff about Kuro and Wuthering Waves, I'm not shitting on the game. Again, you know, flight in the game doesn't mean bad, right? When I say all this stuff, I mean me, right? Because I know I have to. People kept saying that as well. Why'd you keep saying for you, for you, for you? Because if I don't, people think you're stating it as a fact, right? I'm not. Like, I'm just talking. Like, I hate that about this community sometimes as well. You know, the gacha space of the. Unless you specifically, repeatedly let people know that it's your opinion, they think you're speaking from a factual opinion. But then when you do repeatedly let you know it's your opinion, they get mad that you keep saying that as well. Because just because I think that doesn't mean other people don't think that, right? That's why people love the bike and people love flight as well, right?
Genshin pumped out billions and everybody was like, wait, hold up, wait a second. Oh my good God. A lot of companies before Genshin chat already had gacha games. They were making decent money, but none of them were making the billions that Genshin made in 1 year, right? Like, that was unheard of. So it was just like, oh, wait, hold up. This is an untapped market that we've invested in, but clearly we should have invested more. The JP devs still haven't followed suit? Well, exactly JP devs probably still have normal filing systems in their fucking corporations because they're all fucking idiots, okay? Like, I would not be surprised. Chat, back in 2016, when I worked at the law firm, we were helping our law firm digitize everything. Their entire fucking IP patents, all of it was being digitized, right? I would not be surprised if in Japan they were like, no.
They put a lot of effort in Renacita that couldn't keep within later content. Yeah, I said this before as well, Reldon. I agree to it to a point, because like Renacita was exceptional, I think, right? Exceptional. I do believe the flight for me was the start of a creation of a problem with exploration. But in how good Renacita was, it was one of those things where it's like, can they continue that? Now, hey, maybe they will, right? Maybe they will. But it's going to be a hard ask. You know, there's only so much you can keep those huge leaps, right? I mean, at least Kuro tries their best to please their player base, making their best compared to the whole Mio company. I think Kuro definitely attempt to, you know, I think from somebody who played Wuthering Waves a lot, right? I do think Kuro are a company with passion. I do. Honestly do. Integrating a bunch of different ideas and making them work together is innovation. But the execution of Breath of the Wild was phenomenal. They didn't invent shit, made the whole engine experience perfect. Pardon me. Ocarina of Time wasn't a Zelda game when it launched, but now it's what people associate with Zelda. E33 reminds me of the X-Ashes. Oh, that's why I'm not amazed when I play the story's goated though. That's why I don't like this way of diminishing games. It didn't revolutionize anything. No current game does anything. It just merge gameplay, mechanics with each other's. Yeah, at the end of the day, Everything's inspired, right? Nothing's truly unique.
Oh, digital, no. Files. We like files here.
Bro, Benson need too much of the player base.
Oh, we're gonna, oh, you need what? Oh, Samsung? Okay, let's go to the S. Samsung. Here's the whole folder of Samsung. Like, motherfucker, who the fuck's doing that? Nobody's doing that. That shit's stupid. That's xenophobic, bro. How's that xenophobic? How's that xenophobic? Like, how saying that they're ass backwards and being slow to digitize and change xenophobic? Why are you gonna sound like that, bro? What did I sound like? I guess I can say War 2.0 did give me that feeling of playing Genshin for the first time again, but it didn't truly change the landscape as much as Genshin did. I'll give you that. Yeah, no. Accent? So
I think talking about them maybe bending the knee a little bit too much. I think, again, post-launch, let's say post 2.2, I guess I can't comment on specifics, right, in terms of bending the knee. I think it's evident from day one, though, right? Because look at the change to the story. They ripped the game to pieces, for better or for worse. Who knows? We can never say, because we don't know what the original version of Wuthering Waves would have been story-wise now, right? Yeah, they're folded pretty early, didn't they, in that regard?
You're mad at the Asian guy for having an Asian accent? Oh, shit. Okay. My bad. True. Let me sound more American. Oh, my bad. I should have been like, here's the file folders. And they go to the Samsung, and we gotta find the S, and then they pull out the folder. True. What the fuck? That's not American. Oh, now that was a little too. Okay. Oh, okay, my bad. We'll have another game-changing industry when another 2019 happens, and Hey, listen, it's a long-standing joke I have here, where I said, what if the next big gacha game is actually like their first biggest investment for the next big gacha game is a bio lab, and Tencent's like, okay, we're creating the next big gacha game. First investment, create a full bio weapons lab, and we're gonna create the next fucking viral disease. And then once they have that perfected, they're like, okay.
It's 2020 all over again. COVID buff, ready to go.
This has been tested on human subjects. Yes? Okay. All right, now we make the game. Like, it's like, oh god, bro. Chat, if I'm dead tomorrow, you know why. It's because I know too much.
Alright, okay. You know what? How am I not sub to Fob, man? I've watched loads of Fob content and I'll sub. Yeah, man, fundamentally, I agree with a lot of points what he's saying, right? Man, we turned that into a long-ass react there, really, didn't we? But yeah, man, in regards to, like, the overall conversation around vision versus corporate interests and stuff, yeah, it's a necessary evil. This idea that all games are somehow creatively void. In regards to where it started, I just think it's not true, right? Because there was somebody at some point throughout the ladder who was super hyped about creating this and pour everything into it, and then the filters of corporations get involved and we end up with lesser products, right? And then the consumer gets involved as well at the end, even from companies that might not necessarily have the shareholders, the investors, the publishers, and everybody involved from top to bottom is passionate about projects. You know, the consumer is going to have an effect on how they then drive their art form forward, right? So yeah, great video. I enjoyed that. Yeah, man. Yeah, and I agree. The worst thing that Endfield could do is rip out the fucking the base building, because that's them publicly saying we don't know. This was what we wanted. You said no. All right, then what do you want? And I think that'll inevitably end up bad, and it'll start infesting every other aspect of the game then, right? Because they'll second guess themselves constantly and bend the knee over the slightest little bit of pressure. So yeah. I don't think they will either. I don't think we've got to worry about that.